Good evening, I'm your host Martino Sesnic, and you're watching interview for Crofreemedia television. Tonight, our dear guest is Dr. Semir Osmanagic. Good evening and welcome, Dr. Osmanagic.
Good evening. Thank you, Martino.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I want to thank God, the creator of the universe, that connects us all together, us truth seekers and truth lovers, and makes things as this interview tonight possible. So I wanted to ask you, firstly, I haven't been on the pyramids in Visoko since 2017. So what are the news? What's happening in Visoko? What can you tell us? What's new?
The Bosnian pyramid discovery is still the most exciting archaeological project on the planet. It's still the most active archaeological site on the planet. For those of the viewers who are not aware of this discovery, in the central Bosnia, near the town of Visoko, just half an hour drive from the capital city of Sarajevo, back in 2005, I've discovered the pyramid complex, completely covered by soil, grass, greenery. We started excavation back in April of 2006, and so far we have determined that we got 6 pyramids, which we named the Bosnian pyramids of the Sun, Moon, Dragon, Earth, Love, and the 6th pyramid. Below the pyramid complex, there is a huge network of underground tunnels. The last time we were there, we had only 2 tunnels discovered, which we named the Ravne tunnels and KTK tunnels. In the meantime, we discovered 4 more entrances into the prehistorical tunnels, which we named Ravne 2, Ravne 3, Ravne 4, and the Healing tunnels. The whole Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids was in those tunnels. So far, we discovered entrances to 2 levels of the tunnels, and most probably there are between 3 and 7 levels. We guess that there are at least 100 kilometers of those prehistorical tunnels, and so far we have cleared and secured for the visitors about 3 kilometers of those tunnels. So, what we have under the ground and above the ground, it's really exciting in archaeological sense. However, even more exciting are our interdisciplinary scientific approach, where we've proven that those pyramids are the biggest on the planet, because the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun is over 300 meters, and as we know, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, 146.6. Secondly, the orientation to the north is the most precise. Of course, 250 pyramids in central Chinese province of Shanxi are oriented to the north. 155 Egyptian pyramids north, Peruvian, some Mexican, all Cahokia pyramids in the States. But the northern side of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun has an error from the perfect north of 0 degrees, 0 minutes, and only 12 seconds. So it's the most precise orientation.
And you can date this between 12,000 and 15,000 years ago, the construction of these pyramids, if I understand correctly.
Actually, no. This was my hypothesis back in 2005. In the meantime, of course, we got about 28 radiocarbon dating and some uranium thorium analysis, and we got precise date of 29,200 years, plus minus 400 years. So we go back for 30,000 years. So these are the oldest pyramids on the planet. These are the biggest pyramids on the planet. The most precise orientation to the north, and the strongest, the best quality concrete on the planet covers the pyramid. And of course, the first European pyramid. So all these facts are changing our history books forever. Now, the next thing, we have determined that from the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, we have an energy beam, which is electrical in nature, frequency of 28 kilohertz, the radius of 4.5 meters. It's continuous, meaning we could measure it during all seasons, spring and summer and fall and winter. And this energy beam starts at 4.5 meters, and then it expands to 20 meters and 4.5 and 20 and 4.5. So for the physicists, there were no doubts. These were so-called Tesla's scalar waves. Of course, the brilliant scientist Nikola Tesla, 120 years back, was investigating very subtle and soft energy, the scalar waves, and in the last 50 years, it's the Russian scientist that's been investigating this phenomenon, and they've concluded that the scalar waves move quicker than the speed of light. So, we have recorded them on the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. Secondly, so when it comes to the purpose of pyramids, it seems that the first purpose was the communication device. Secondly, we've noticed that people who visit our underground tunnels, and we have more than 3 kilometers of those tunnels open for the public right now, people feel good. They breathe very well. People with the respiratory problems like asthma, infections, and so on, once they visit the tunnels, they don't need the air pumps, inhalators, no more. People who have high blood pressure, it gets normalized. People with a high sugar in the blood, it goes back to the normal level. People with all kinds of pains are gone. So we have determined that the second purpose of the pyramid energy was the regeneration process or the self-healing. The third purpose, we notice that the pyramid energy improves the molecular structure of the water. Number 4, it improves the molecular structure of food. Number 5, it improves our immunity. Number 6, it improves our auric field, the bioenergy field around our body. Number 7, it brings our chakras back to the balance. It opens them up. Number 8, it improves the atmosphere, and so on. So, in other words, the pyramid energy simply improves anything and everything that it touches.
I remember when we were in Rijeka in 2017 and we were talking with Jock Doubleday about this cosmic internet. What can you tell us about the pyramid being also maybe a communication device or a portal to another dimension?
When we measured the presence of the energy beam, we wanted to see the direction. And what we noticed was that in the morning, the energy beam is moved a little bit to the east. And as we know, the sun rises at the east. At the noontime, it's moved to the south. And as we know, our sun, exactly at the noontime, is above our head, oriented to the south. In the afternoon, southwest. In the evening, west. Of course, the sun set at the west. So our conclusion was that this energy beam follows the path, the movement of the sun. Does it mean that there is a connection between the pyramid energy, pyramid beams, and the sun? It's possible. Does it mean that the pyramid energy, this energy beam, goes to the sun, connecting to the other solar systems? It's possibility. Does it mean that using these cosmic gates, it can connect to other galaxies? It is also possible. So, since always the movement of the energy is two-way movement, there is a possibility that some type of the cosmic internet does exist. And it is through the movement of the so-called scalar waves, and they travel extremely fast, much, much quicker than the speed of light.
There was this scientist, his name is Ighina, an Italian scientist. He was an assistant to Marconi. He also says that there is a connection between this geomantic energy and the sun energy, and they are two energies connecting together. So what you now said about the energy of the pyramid following the movement of the sun, I can understand completely. Who measured this? Goran Marjanovic or somebody else?
Well, we have a total of 5 teams coming from 2010 till last year to measure the energy phenomena on the top of the Bosnian pyramid of the sun, but also the moon, the tumulus, the tunnels, and so on. Goran Marjanovic is a brilliant engineer from Serbia, from Belgrade. And then we have team from Zagreb, we have team from Finland, we have team from Italy, and team from Germany. So people, physicists, electrical engineers, sound engineers, telecommunication engineers, these are the people who come with the scientific instruments. Meaning, if you come and measure, and you have another team coming at a different time with their own instruments, and they all record same frequency, the same phenomenon, it is called, the scientific verification.
Verification, of course, yes. What can you tell me about the K5? I remember last time when I was in Visoko, the K5 was one of the biggest discoveries about the sandstones. Did you discover something new like the K5 till today?
Now, in the tunnels, we've been discovering different blocks, which we named egg-shaped block, K1, K2, K3, K4, K5. Now, these blocks we've scanned with the georadar, concluding that inside these blocks we always have presence of the quartz crystal. So it means that somebody made like the cover, the lid, to close them. And when we analyze the physical and chemical composition of these blocks, the conclusion was that they were actually artificially made, or ceramic blocks. So they were using the sandstone material, they were using the quartz crystal, they were using the element called muscovite, so different elements, they were mixing them up, and most probably they cooled them under the high temperatures, and they were getting very interesting mixture of the material, which has probably several purposes. We've noticed that those blocks were always located above the underground water flows. When water moves, it releases the energy. This energy hitting the blocks, and usually this energy it's bad for humans. We know that if we have our bedroom above the underground water flow, and we've been exposed for 2, 3, 5 years, we're gonna get sick. So, simplified terms, we can say this energy is negative energy for humans.
Positive ions, right?
Yeah, the ancients knew that by making those blocks, they can neutralize negative and transform it to the positive energy. Meaning they were aware of the underground energies, and there are many. So one is this negative energy from the underground water flows. Another ones are so-called Hartmann grids or Hartmann lines. They are about 30 centimeters wide, and they run east, west, north, south. They intersect every 2 by 2.5 meters, and those intersections, again, bad energy for humans. But again, when you make those blocks, when you strategically lay them out, they can neutralize this energy. We have, Curry's grids, we have Schneider's grids, and the ancients, it seems to me, were very well aware of all those energy movements, unlike us, because we do not have proper scientific instruments to measure them all.
Okay, they act like a buffer, and they are usually where there is an underwater flow where it is diverging, right? And this is acting like a buffer.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. And what we've noticed, when you enter the tunnels, you start finding blocks. First, smaller ones, like the one that we called egg-shaped block, is about 350 kilos. Then you have 3.5 tons and 4 tons. Our famous K2 block is 8 tons. and K5 that you mentioned a few minutes back, almost 100 tons. So it's very important to realize that somebody had technology 30,000 years back to pour the ceramic blocks with the mass of 100 tons.
So people that come to the Bosnian pyramids can also heal themselves. I have experienced this myself. It's a very fresh air inside the tunnels, and the water there is drinkable, and it's very fresh and refreshing. I remember when I was there, I was working as a volunteer, and it was a great experience for me. Can you tell us about your visitors? Do they come throughout the whole year, or you have only from April and so on?
5 or 10 years back, our season was mostly during the summer month. But then every year, our actual season would expand. Even the volunteer season, last time it was from May until the end of October, so it was like 6-7 months. Before it was 2 or 3 months. But as far as touristic season, the visitors and the guests, they do come all year around. Like last few months, December, January, or even February, they are so much different than a few years back. I remember 5 years back, for example, in December, we could see 2 visitors a day, 3, 4, or 5 days, nobody would show up. And our poor tourist guys, they would be waiting, and finally they would give up, they go home, they give us a call when somebody shows up. It was just, short 3 or 5 years back. This December, just 3 months ago, December of 2020, we had in average 100 visitors a day.
Wow.
So this is a big difference. For example, January 2nd, January 3rd, we had 520 and 540 people. How do we know that? Well, we have cash register, we pay taxes now, so we know exactly how many people visit us a day.
Considering the travel situation, it's an incredible number, right?
Even with the situation that all the travel industry has been collapsed worldwide, in 2020 we've seen that the results were the income from in tourist industry was like 80% less than the year before. And these are really catastrophic numbers. But in our case, I'll give you an idea. In 2018, we had about 40,000 visitors who came exclusively to visit the pyramids. In 2019, we had 50,000. In 2020, we had 85,000. So actually for us, 2020 was the record year.
Record year.
But I must say that unlike all other businesses, travel agencies, transportations company, tourist guides and so on, who are waiting from the government to get some financial help, in our case, we have not seen any money from the government, no help, but we've been promoting more than ever. And even though those little groups that's been bringing those measures to halt the economy, to halt the travel, to close the borders, they managed to close the borders of Bosnia for the outside world. So people could not come to Bosnia. Only 2 countries could, Serbia and a little bit of Croatia. So all our visitors in 2020 were Bosnians, Serbians, and Croatians. And we got the record year. So I would say once we open up again the borders, it won't happen 2021. Probably it won't happen 2022. We'll see what's going to be after that. But if we can see some signs of normality like 2018 or 19, I would expect that the Bosnian pyramid numbers would reach hundreds of thousands of people, and very important to say, without any help from the government.
I wish also that to you, sir, that this happens, that it comes true. What can you tell us? We are in the same theme, so we may as well continue about the summer festivals that are going to happened. I have some friends here where I live. The group Parafi, they told me that they will be playing in Ravne 2 Park this summer. So, what can you tell us?
Yeah. Well, we started as the archaeological project, 15 years back. Then we have expanded to scientific aspect, energy aspect, spiritual aspect, healing aspect. But then in the last 5 years, we started buying properties. Properties were very neglected, they were swampy, and we have cleared everything and cleaned, and we made a beautiful park, almost 100,000 square meters. We named it Archaeological Tourist Park Ravne 2. What does it mean, Ravne? I've been mentioning Ravne. Ravne in Bosnian means flat. So Ravne 2 Park. And we got this tradition to organize 2 festivals a year. The first one was during the most important day for all different traditions around the world. And that was the first day of summer, or the summer solstice. And the second festival was the last day of summer and the beginning of fall, or the fall equinox. And as we know, the seasons were extremely important for the ancient people, different seasons. Then you prepare for different activities as far as the agriculture, the way of living, and the clothing, and stuff like that. And, of course, June 21st, that's the day when the daylight is the longest, 16 hours, when the sun rays are the strongest, and when our mother planet is the healthiest. So, in the last few years, during the summer solstice, we would organize festival 4 days, 4 nights, festival, and the fair. On the fair, we would always have 60, 70 vendors selling organic food, selling, honey products, selling, quartz crystal, nice stuff. And the different groups with the, different activities would come and they would perform, and the crystal balls and the gongs, and very nice and friendly and pleasant atmosphere, people from all over the world. And unlike other events, there is no alcohol on our events. And, people come to the park, no screaming, no yelling. So we have created the place which is perfectly in harmony with the nature, a place with a positive energy, and people love to come. And during the festivals, we invite everyone to come for free. We don't charge entrance tickets. We don't charge tickets for the park at all. We don't charge parking. And we are the ones who made those parking laws and who maintain them and who clean them and so on. We don't charge it, we don't charge anyone. We have a lot of installations. We have, for example, labyrinths of energy, labyrinths of love, labyrinths of purification, labyrinths of health. We don't charge for our installation. We have megalithic circles and stuff like that. So we want people to feel free. And as a matter of fact, the moment we got born, we are born free, but the moment we got born, they start with the vaccines, they're telling us you can't do this, you can't do that, the law forbids you to do this. Well, we want to give the freedom back to the people. So I think it's very important, and we invite really all different performers to come. We have different workshops, we have lectures, nutritionism, we have different meditational groups and so on. Even in 2020, without possibility to bring the artists from Germany, from Switzerland, from US, different countries like in the previous years, we had some performers from Croatia, like Goran Karan, famous singer, from Serbia. Most of them, majority of them were from Bosnia. And even nowadays, like this last weekend, we had people who were singing and dancing. We're going to have next weekend. And we expect that this summer, almost every beautiful day, we will have someone in the park performing. So we want people to feel that normality that we have lost.
I congratulate you on that, sir. And we, in this instance, invite our viewers to come for the summer solstice to Visoko, Bosnia, and for the autumn equinox to the festivals in Visoko, Bosnia. Now you were talking about the vaccines and the fact that we are born free, but that the freedom with this capitis diminutio maxima that's put in our documents, the instant that we get a service number on the state, a birth certificate, we become slaves of the system. And so what can you tell me about this whole corona, let's say epidemic, somebody would like to say plandemic. You said it's a project. What are the news from your side on this?
You see, there were the times when people would have food production. You have your little garden and you plant the food. Now there is no food production. Now there is a food industry. When something becomes industry, then you can be sure that there are a lot of toxins in that food. There were the times when people could drink water freely from water wells or different water sources. Those times are over. The water became a product, and you deal with the water on Wall Street and different places. So there is a water industry. So what they do, they place different toxins like aluminum, like chromium, and some others into the water. The same thing goes for the health. Before we had people who were taking care of our health. Now we have the health industry. And the major element of the health industry is pharmaceutical industry. You would think that it is in the best interest of those corporations to make drugs that would help us heal, but it is not in their interest. Their interest is actually to hide certain diseases and at the same time making the counter effects to our body. So once they keep us sick all our lives, then they make a lot of money. And if we don't want to take drugs, they make sure that through the vaccine program, which starts literally from day one, before we are 24 hours old, we got the first vaccine. In the US, the mandatory is to get 75 doses of different vaccines from day one until the year 18. Sometimes, of course, they do cocktails, let's say 6 different vaccines together. And of course, our body reacts in such a way that we got so many diseases, autoimmune diseases, cancers, and not to mention all others. And this is very sad. But now, it's like a spiral. It's getting higher and more dangerous for humans. Instead of trying to protect us from the diseases, they've been making up diseases like the one which is current, and they've been developing very dangerous experimental communication device, which they named vaccine. So what we hear from Pfizer, the largest pharmaceutical company in the world, headquartered in Cambridge, Massachusetts, from Moderna, the company that during 11 years has not produced a single product, and today it's $60 billion worth. What we heard from Oxford AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca is huge. It is the fourth largest pharmaceutical corporation in the world, and Oxford, meaning Oxford Labs, that started with these mRNA programs. So, and now lately it's Johnson & Johnson. So we have people with...
Sorry, can I interrupt you? Isn't the name Moderna just some game, like it's mode, like modify, and then there's RNA?
Yes, exactly. So now mRNA is a technology that's been testing 20 years back, and the biggest pharmaceutical industries gave up this technology because it was even for them too dangerous. The results on chimpanzees were so bad and so toxic And they tried a very limited number of humans. The results were even worse. So they gave up on that technology. But then 10 years back, Pfizer and Moderna, they were introducing, a little bit different approach, but basically it's the same thing. So what they try to do is to produce, like I said, it's a communication device. It's a synthetic material that's been injected in our body. Now, being synthetic, of course, our immune system recognizes that immediately, and they would get rid of it. So in order to protect what they call the vaccine, mRNA, they gave it the protection, the lipid protection around it. So now this vaccine or communication device is able to penetrate our cells. And once in the cells, what it does, it gives information to cells to start producing toxins. In this case, to start producing coronavirus. And they hope, and that's exactly what's written on their document, we hope that once our cells, the human cells, become the factories of manufacturing the toxins, we hope that the body will recognize this enemy and start with the resistance. So they hope. Now, if you have very simple organism, then you could really hope that it would work. But the human body is so complex. You have hundreds, thousands of different elements that affect our immunity and our work. 1,000 people, 1,000 different responses. So, and the worst thing is, they have not tested these so-called vaccines through the, clinical studies. You have phase 1 and 2 and 3. You got, all these different animals.
Of course, it was so quick. It was impossibly quick.
So just a matter of few months. And now they are saying the new soil of the virus, which is shown in the UK and South Africa and Brazil, they're going to prepare another vaccine in a matter of, a couple of months, and another one, and another one. So the idea is to keep human population vaccinated time after time, once, twice, or 3 times a year. So they tried, they're already doing that, they've been doing that. They've been injecting those communication devices that start generating, those toxins, hoping that we have no idea, not only short term what's going to be happening. We can hear from some, places for elderly in Norway and France and Italy and UK and Germany. We could hear from some clinics in Germany also what's been happening, that people are totally not able to go back to work because of vaccines and many death cases and so on. But, what they've been doing, it's a huge experiment on the global level.
On humanity directly, without using mice, without using animals. It's a direct test on humanity.
In the meantime, they have halted the world economy. They're talking about the social distance, not physical distance. Social distance is a completely different thing. That's not a medical term. Social distance is a social term. I got my PhD in sociology, so I know exactly what social distance is. The social distance, what they've been trying to instill in us is that we consider every other human an enemy. Every other human is a potential threat to us. That means social distancing. Physical distancing. Remember, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you got the influenza, if you got the virus of influenza, you don't go to your parents' house, you don't want to infect them. That's physical distances. It lasts a few days, you get well, you go to them. But social distancing is to consider everyone forever enemies. Yeah. So we cut all our ties among human population.
So it's a medical experiment, it's a sociological experiment, it's a DNA, RNA experiment, it's on many levels. And they want to block travel, they want to implant maybe chips.
They have already done that. I don't know about the chips because, I cannot read that in the specifications. Some doctors are saying that. I don't know that.
Okay.
And they're also saying the genetical changes. I don't know if the moment you instruct or you inform the cells to start producing the toxins, it is genetical experiment, of course. Now, about chip, people are talking about chip. It's possible. I don't know. Nanotechnology gives you any kind of possibilities, but I have not seen that. What I can tell you is based on the production specification from Pfizer, from AstraZeneca, from Moderna, and they are clearly saying, yes, we have this mRNA, messenger RNA, so they are changing what's been happening in our body. That's very sad. Now, on social level, we just talk about social. On economical level, they've been killing the economy. When they started in every different country, the whole process, they were saying, well, it's going to last for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, please stay at home, don't socialize. Next 2 weeks are key. Once we do that, that'll be it. But after 2 weeks, it was worse. Another 2 weeks, and another 2 weeks. And another 2 weeks. It's been a year now.
Yeah.
So, it's forever. It's permanent. It has changed, the social binding, among the population. People don't travel, they kill the industries. And it seems that, what they've been doing, they've been printing thousands of billions of euros in Europe, 6,000 billion or 6 trillion euros in Europe, European Central Bank. From where?
From thin air.
Money printing, exactly. Money printing should be related to the strength of economy. And as we know, all economies actually dropped, so it should be less money. Instead, what they do, they keep people home, they print the money, they give them some social help, so they want to train us to receive the money from the government, not from our work, not from creating new values. So they are doing that in Europe, they'll be doing it on the whole world plan. Yeah. And once they do that, we are totally reliable on them. Once you don't have your own cash, because you cannot produce, you cannot sell your services or your products, you cannot, of course, plant your own seeds. You need to buy, seeds from other companies like, those who are completely genetically modified. Now we have the whole world changed. Where is the nature? The nature disappeared. And we have the media, which are basically in the hands of the private companies. There is no single media in the US which is, paid by taxpayers.
Yeah.
Take CNN.
And big censorship on all other platforms like Facebook and others.
That's very sad. It's very sad. I mean, in 7,000 of documented human history, 7,000 years, from Sumerians until today, it has never been the case that the human rights were suppressed. Our constitutional freedoms were taken away by little groups of people within the governments. And they were using the medical causes as an excuse to stop the life as we know it. And it has never happened on all 6 continents at the same time. Now, it could happen because of the high technology, because of all this big tech. When I say that, have in mind that in March of 2020, when, through the media, they were creating panic and people were thinking about the masks, social distancing, and washing the hands, and don't go out, stay home, be responsible, blah, blah, blah. At the same time, only in 1 month, in March, 40% of the value of 4 biggest companies in a big tech was increased. So, what 4 big companies? Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, and Apple. To understand what kind of numbers we are talking about, Apple is 2,000 billions of dollars worth today. Croatia, for example, has a yearly budget of what? Maybe $20 billion. Bosnia, $10 billion. 20 billion or 10. And here we have 2,000 billions.
For one company.
One company. So imagine how much power they have. We mentioned some of the social media. So we've been witnessing in the last year that one of them, for example, take Twitter. Twitter first were erasing individual accounts because they were promoting different ideas. I'm not talking about invitation for the violence. I'm talking about different opinions. So you come up with a different opinion, they erase your account as individual. And then they erase the account of the officially most powerful man in the world, the president of the US. Whether we like the guy or not, but Trump's, all his Twitter accounts were erased. And now the latest with Facebook, now they erased the whole country of Australia. They said you have to pay for the news from our broadcasters. They said no, and they stopped Facebook in Australia for 3 days. And of course, people live from Facebook. You know, they sell, they meet, they trade. So, the private companies,
enormous
just a
power.
handful of private companies, started deciding about all
Yeah, they have
political
enormous
and
power.
military affairs.
More power than a state, a sovereign state. Yeah.
Exactly. This is the whole new game. The whole new game. Now they feel strong enough to do what they do. You take Elon Musk, Tesla Inc.
Mm-hmm.
Last year he reached 500,000 vehicles. That's a nice success, 500,000. But he is worth more than 4 largest, car manufacturers. Toyota from Japan, 11.5 million cars, buses, trucks. This guy 500,000, Toyota 11 million. Volkswagen, 11 million. We have General Motors, we have Nissan, together 40 million cars. Tesla, 500,000. And Tesla is more worth than those 4 major car companies. How is that possible? It's not because he has, so many factories or equipment or what. No. It is all about the money and the game on Wall Street. So we can clearly see that the biggest players, those who are not on Forbes list, so not Zuckerberg, not the Elon Musk, not this guy, Bill Gates, they have 100 billion, 150, 200 billions. It's unimaginable numbers. But those who are really in power are not even mentioned there. Rockefellers, Morgans, Rothschilds. Why they are the biggest players? Because they print money. How they print money? You would say they don't print money because in the US you have Federal Reserve, they print money, they decide. This is not federal agency. Despite its name, when Woodrow Wilson signed the law, 1913, he was in the chair at that time. Last 18 months he was in the chair. He said that was my biggest mistake when he established Federal Reserve. Because 4 biggest banks in the world at that time, Rothschild Paris, Rothschild London, and we have Morgan Bank, and we have, of course, Chase, Rockefellers. They are the major shareholders of Fed. So the destiny of American economy is in the private hands of just very few people. People don't know that. They print the money and they lend the money to US government, which pays interest and so on, to private bankers. Okay, then people will say, all right, in Europe it's different. We have European Central Bank. It is not different. European Central Bank consists of 27 national central banks. Central Bank of Germany, Bank of Deutschland, of Austria, of
And so
Slovenia,
on,
of
yes.
Croatia, of Spain, UK until a few months
Recently,
back.
yes.
But who owns those national banks? It's not the government. The government is 20 to 40%.
The
The
families.
largest shareholders, again,
Yeah.
Rothschild Paris,
Yeah.
Rothschild Spain in
Yes.
Barcelona, Rothschild Germany in Frankfurt. So, who decides about the money policy?
The Rothschilds.
Families. So now we can see that the world is a little bit different than we think. So while we were so busy with the fear of corona, at the same time, thousands of billions of dollars were going from the hands of little private investors, small businesses, and pension funds in the US to the hands of the biggest tech companies. And now the second emerging power, pharmaceutical industry. Pfizer, who was the largest, was only $5 billion worth until last year. This year it's already 50 billion. Moderna 60 billion. And they grow exponentially. Very soon it will be 100, and 200, and $500 billion, because with all these products, and the world would become completely reliable on their products. They're going to become the second largest players. And then, in that case, there is no country in the world who can resist the pressure, because they're going to have all the resources.
What can we say to people? Maybe to start to grow their own vegetables. Maybe.
Of course, that's the advice that should go to everyone. Their own vegetables from the organic seeds.
Mm-hmm.
But what we can say to people, if we want to go back to normality and not to stay to new normality, as a matter of fact, we don't need new normality or normality like before. We need better normality.
Evolution.
Even that old normality was with all this, big elites running our lives. We need new normality. We need better normality. We need normal people who are in charge. We need people. We need different organizations. We need communities. We don't need countries. We need communities. We need people helping each other. We need people living in peace, not giving hundreds of billions of dollars for military and so on. But what we can say at this point, we have only two tools, peaceful tools. The third one, of course, those very aggressive. I'm not in favor of that one. I don't even want to mention them. But two peaceful tools. The first one, in democracy, the highest level of expressing the opinion of the widest public is to go to the street and to tell them we are not happy with you governing our society. If they don't listen to you, if they steal the elections, you go out. But not 10 people, not 50 people, not 50,000 people. You need to see 5 million people in Berlin, 6 million people in London, 4 million people in Paris, 4 million people in Madrid.
500,000 people in Zagreb, for say. Yeah.
Zagreb, you need 500,000. In Belgrade, you need 800,000. In Sarajevo, you need 200,000. When majority of the people is out on the streets, peacefully demonstrating.
Peacefully. That's very important. Yes.
This is the first tool. Because let's not forget 8 billion people and 10,000 billionaires. This is really the major confrontation, and this has been going on forever. Before you had monarchies, kings, queens, now you have those 10,000 billionaires. Not millionaires are somewhere in the middle, and you have 7.8 billion people. Unfortunately, what they've been doing, divide and rule, it's been working excellent, because now they have ones who wear masks, those who don't wear masks, maskers.
And the whole corona thing is
so they've been dividing us, unfortunately.
It's a problem reaction solution, right?
Yeah. So this is the first solution, to express publicly. And the second one, you go through the courts. In every country, the highest constitutional courts. When you read constitution of every country, actually there are 3 countries in the world who don't have constitutions like others. It's UK, Israel, and Bhutan. But every other country are talking about the human rights. You take the General Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, United Nations. You take European Convention on Human Rights, 1950 Rome. Today it's accepted by all nations in Europe, 47 of them, who are in this parliamentary. So when you read them, it's very clear. The freedom of movement, right to work, to gather, to express opinion publicly, to go back to a place of residence, and so on and so forth. All those rights have been suspended. The only constitutional court in Europe made decision, and that was December 22nd, 2020, that was Bosnian Constitutional Court, which decided that decisions by, as they call them, small groups within, executive levels of powers, meaning in the Ministry of Health, their decisions were unconstitutional because they were violating human rights, because what they did in the Federation of Bosnia, they had a ban on a movement after 11 p.m. until, I think, 5 or 6 a.m. And secondly, they forced people to wear the masks. They said that was invasion on human rights. That was the only constitutional court that made such a decision. And this is the only one which gives us some hope, because they are the only one, it seems to me, in Europe who have some common sense and who follow, the hierarchy among the legal documents. What you have now bodies within the Ministry of Health, and they are on the bottom when it comes to the law. So they make those measures. They tell you have to wear a mask, don't move after 11 o'clock, let's shut down restaurants and gyms and so on. So they make those measures. Above such measures are the measures made by the government. That's level number 2. Level number 3 are the laws. They are called general laws or les generales. They are made by the parliament. Level number 4 are special laws, les speciales, special laws. Level number 5, international convention and treaties. For example, European Convention of Human Rights, or if you're a member of UN, you have to accept and sign the General Declaration of Human Rights. That's level number 5. And level number 6 is the Constitution of the country. And if the Constitution says that you have the right to work, and that's on the top of the pyramid, you cannot have little body of 5 or 6 people at the bottom with their measures that are older than number 1. And this has been going for too long. There are exceptions. If you are in a state of war, then they can suspend temporarily the Constitution and some of the rights, or if there is a real threat on health, a real threat, not a threat with 0.02 dead people from corona. The real threat, if you think about it, is really cancer. You get, some bad, forms of cancer. 40% you're going to die. Cardiovascular, 30%. You got a heart attack, 30%. And here you have 0.02.
But they don't have time for those patients now. Only corona now in the hospitals.
Which is another aspect of what they've been doing to us, neglecting other people through the health system. Instead of treating everyone the same way, they've been neglecting everybody else. So So when we see what they've been doing, I said two peaceful and legal ways are peaceful demonstrations and go to the court. Go to the court, submit your request, appeal if they deny you, appeal again, and eventually you're gonna find honest judges in Croatia, in Serbia, in Germany, in Poland, in Moldavia, in the US, in Russia, in Australia.
So an appeal to all our viewers, truth seekers out there that maybe have a law degree, please join the fight and let's do something through the courts. I know I have read an article that 3 judges are uncorruptible in the main court in Zagreb. So for my country, for example, and this will be, as you say, Dr. Osmanagic, in all the countries, there will be good people that will help you in this fight. So let's take an emphasis on that. But I want to back you up just on something that you said earlier. You were talking about water. So I heard you in other interviews talking about ionizers, ionizators, ozonizators, water distillers maybe. Is that all a healthy alternative to the poisons that they are putting in our water system?
As we know, our soil, air, water have been contaminated for decades, intentionally and purposely. The water that we drink, tap water, no viruses, bacteria, but it has chlorine, which is a poison. It has fluorides, poisons, the traces of heavy metals, poisons. This is what we drink. The bottled water, the standards are even lower. They add aluminum and some other toxins. Now, what we realized in the Bosnian Pyramid Project is that one element, which is called the negative ions, are extremely important. What are the negative ions? These are electrons from oxygen atom, oxygen, O2. Those free electrons are basically negative ions. If they are free in the air, what they do, they connect to the dust. If you breathe the dust, you're going to get sick. But they connect to the dust, they become heavy, they drop to the floor. They connect with the pollen, allergies in the spring. They connect to the pollen, they clear the atmosphere. When they come to our body, they raise the level of oxygen. More oxygen, more productive we are. And finally, and most importantly, they neutralize, they kill all microbes. What are the microbes? Those small particles. The viruses, bacteria, fungi. All viruses, including the one from 2020 and 2021. How they remove those viruses? Well, now, because of Corona, we know how the virus looks like. You have this, little ball, which is RNA or DNA, and you have those little sticks, which are proteins. Proteins consist of amino acid, the carbon, and the hydrogen. Hydrogen being the binder. Now, when you have negative ions, they usually come with the positive ions in pairs. Positive ions are coming from the atom of hydrogen. So negative and positive is OH, oxygen, hydrogen. OH is a very reactive mixture. So what they do, they jump on those little sticks of virus. They jump on it and they extract an atom of hydrogen. So now you have OHH, O, H2O. What is H2O? That's the water or humidity. And you know what? In our tunnels, when humidity outside is, let's say, 20 or 25%, inside the tunnels in Bosnian pyramids, 84%. Why? Because very high concentration of negative ions.
Does that have the capacity of cleaning the lungs?
Yeah, they clean, exactly. inside and outside. Clean from the viruses and bacteria from inside and from the outside. So, more negative ions, less viruses. Very logical. In your office, my home, we have about 20 negative ions per cubic centimeters, which is nothing. We have probably about 200 positive ions, which are really bad, and they are produced by TV or microwave or laptop or whatever. So, if we go outside to downtown Zagreb or Sarajevo or Munich, we have about 150 negative ions. You go by the river, 500 negative ions. You go to the top of the mountain in the pine tree forest, 1,000. 1,000 is good. It's 6-7 times more and 6-7 times healthier than in the downtown cities. And you know that. It's a common sense. But you go to the Bosnian pyramid tunnels, values are between 20,000 and 60,000, meaning 50 times healthier than on the top of the mountain in the pine tree forest. What does that mean? It means that they act as the most secure place on the planet, and they clean our body from all the viruses and microbes. That's why we realize why the presence in the Bosnian pyramid tunnel is so important. Those of the viewers who cannot, of course, come to Bosnia or will come some later time, what they can do, they can buy, ionizer. Now, it's very important when you buy the ionizer that you don't buy the one that produces an ozone. Now, ozone or O3, oxygen is O2. Ozone is very important high in the atmosphere, where it acts as a defender of our planet, the UV ultraviolet rays from the sun. But if we breathe the ozone, it's very bad for our respiratory system. And majority of the ionizer in the world, American, German, and so on, they produce ozone. You don't want ozone. You want only negative ions. There are two companies that I know of. One is in Japan, it's Sharp, and one is in Slovenia. So it is from Balkan. That produces ionizer without ozone, as a part of the production. So how did they do it? They developed their own technology based on the carbon brushes. I purchased the matter of fact, here is on my desk. It's a small machine. It looks like this. And the black thing here
Yeah, I can see it.
are
Yes.
the carbon brushes. And this is where they produce those negative ions. Now, since we have two instruments to measure the concentration of negative ions, I use both of them. And the manufacturer, this company, Yonex from Slovenia. For those of you who want to write down, it's IONEX.SI. Yonex.si. And the people who want to buy, they can buy, and they can even mention that they heard this from our conversation, the pyramid conversation, and they will tell, they'll probably send some gift with the ionizer. When I purchased it, I paid about 200 euros. But probably in Croatia and the European Union countries, it's about maybe 170 euros, because I had to pay customs and so on. It's in Bosnia. And I must say, it's excellent thing. You would never think how much bad of those substances are in the air. What we breathe day after day, especially during the winter months, all the smog and all this toxins in the air. So this is something that I could recommend. Yes.
I use the ozonizer, the O3 machine, for cleaning the salads, or even cleaning other foods that are purchased
You can clean
in the
the
water.
food, and that's fine.
Okay.
It would guide. Listen, if we could, instead of breathing through our lung system, if we could send ozone to our blood, theoretically, I don't know how, but if you could do that, it would clear your blood. The problem is when it comes directly to our lung. This is the problem.
Yeah, I remember when I was ozonizing the room with the O3 machine, I would leave the room and then leave it to reventilate. So it would just clean the objects in the room, but I would never use it if the pump was not in the water with the filter.
That's fine. And, they have those air cleaners. I have the air cleaners. They are good for the, if you have smoker in the house, they are good because they neutralize the odor and so on. So what I did, I measured the concentration. I mentioned the concentration in our Bosnian pyramid tunnels, which is a healing level, about 20 to 50,000. Well, the manufacturer is saying it's about 5 million. So what I did, I had this instrument, I came, and the maximum is about 2 million. And as I was approaching, I could see that level rising, and when I came next to the instrument, when I came 1 centimeter away, it was over 2 million. That was on the top, so I knew that it was over 2 million. But then you move it about 20 centimeters, it's finally coming back 1.5, 2 millions. You move it half a meter, 500,000, and my desk is about 1.5 meters from the ionizer, and it's about 50,000, which is ideal for work, and it's a healing level.
Dr. Osmanagic, how long do you keep it on?
Well, I don't use it at all times. I'll tell you why. There is so much dirt in the air. The negative ions, they connect with them, and you got so much dirt on your floor and your walls.
Did I understand correctly? You keep it on all the time?
No.
I know.
First few days, yes. Now, only when I need it. Like I was somewhere traveling, outside Bosnia for a week, and I got a little cold. I came back. I put it on my bed. I had it on the whole night. So I was breathing so well. Next morning, everything was gone. So this is something to recommend to everyone. And I would say the first time people, maybe they should keep it here on different places in the rooms, the living room, the bedroom. And the walls will get so dirty because it's going to pick up on all this dirt and the dust and the pollens and all the skin cells. And once you clean that, and probably the best way would be to paint your rooms again. Once you clean it, then after that you won't see so much of the dirt anymore. Oh. But it's better to do a little paint job once a year than to breathe day after day all this dirt which comes and accumulates in our lungs.
So it collects dust particles?
Everything.
Incredible.
When you open the window during the sunny days, then you can see where those rays are coming. Mm-hmm. You can see something in the air.
Dust particles, yes.
So these are the dusts that can be seen. But majority is so tiny that you can't see. Mm-hmm. And the negative ions connect with those, they go on the floor.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the information. I want to back you up 1 minute only. Since we were talking about this coronavirus, I heard you in another interview, you were talking about the HIV connection to the corona. So maybe you can tell us something briefly.
Well, matter of fact, back in March of 2020, before the measures were established in all of the European countries, all Italy was done a little bit before that, in February. I was the first one, at least in the Balkan region, who said that the corona was the project, that it came from the labs. A month later, the Chinese Ministry of Health, they said that the Americans brought it to China in October of 2019, and then American president, American vice president, American state secretary said that there were Chinese who got it from the lab. So, they were accusing each other. I was saying, no. The truth is it came from the UK, from Oxford, or from Pier Institute, to be more precise, which is financed by Bill Gates. I was the first one who mentioned actually connection with Bill Gates. I was the first one who said it was a project. I was the first one who said that while they're going to be doing this project, people will be busy with the health. They're going to be basically moving thousands of billions of dollars on their accounts. And it really, unfortunately, came to reality. But 2 months later, the French Nobel Prize winner, Luc Montagnier, who actually got his Nobel Prize for discovering the HIV virus, 3 years back, more than 3 years back. He said that he did discover that part of the coronavirus is also HIV virus. And later on, we realized that we have the old corona, HIV, and very improved aggressive proteins with the receptors prepared that way that they go after the cells in our lung. So basically, they got those 3 things: old corona, HIV, improved protein, to have biological weapon against humanity.
So HIV is also a project. I remember seeing this movie, A House of Numbers, in which all of this was explained, that HIV could also be, like this corona, a big hoax.
Well, since I'm old enough to remember the times when HIV was out, and I remember the media hysteria from that time, I mean, we're talking 1981, how is it possible that the virus attacks only African blacks and gays in the US? Which gays? Those who were in hospitals, and instead of blood transfusion, they were getting additional HIV virus. So it seems to me like a project also. The same goes for Africa. Traveling throughout the Africa, for example, I was going to Swaziland several times. You realize that 28 of the adult active population, we're talking men, 28% of them have HIV virus. And of course, we have to connect it with those, all the doctors who are going there to help those people, Doctors Without Borders, UN different agencies, and so on. Very good people who are trying to help, but they had no clue what kind of injections, what kind of vaccines they were giving to the young people or to the old people. 28% is a terrible number for one country. I mean, it's an unimaginable number. For the majority of the African countries, it's between 1 and 5%. But have in mind, 5% in Ethiopia. Ethiopia having 110 million people. 5% is 5 million people. That's more than the whole of Croatia. 5% in Kenya, in Somalia, in South Sudan, in Sudan, and Uganda, and so on. These are terrible numbers. And I hate to think that it was intentionally done. I hate to think that it was part of the project of depopulation, but unfortunately, many, many arguments in that hypothesis.
Okay, let's leave that terrible subject behind for a moment, and let's talk about nice, beautiful, and positive things. I know that you encourage meditation, you talk a lot about astral projection, you talk a lot about the cosmic internet, astrology, shamanism. I'm curious, have you ever heard about another truther in the truth community? His name is Santos Bonacci, and he is a creator of this movement, syncretism, where he explains that many of the things are connected with the cosmos, with the astrological signs, and with astrology.
Well, I'm not aware of this particular gentleman, but of course I'm aware of the phenomenon. Of course that there is a synchronicity among the events, among the people, about what we do, the attraction, what we attract. And of course there is much more than the physical aspect of our living. We have spiritual, we have intellectual, we have energy aspects. So we have different bodies. And we are also different entities. We have physical entity, we have, soul, and we have spirit. Physical is for one use only. It lasts, 20, 50, 80, 90 years. That's it. And these are experiences. And the soul is within our body. So our body acts as a protection for our soul. But our soul, through our body, is getting all those experiences. And once we are gone, physically, the soul continues. You know how they've been teaching us, that we should be afraid of death and so on. And based on that fear, we have all other fears. Fear of losing the job, losing the credit and loans and house and cars and all the material belongings and so on. Once we realize that we have our soul, which is almost forever, which has to go through many, many experiences. On this planet only, many experiences. Now imagine many different solar systems, many galaxies, many universes. So our soul will be lasting for a very long time. It's within our body. And within the soul, there is a spirit. Spirit is a small, it's like a little flash of light. And that's part of the omnipresent creator of God. You know how they say God is all around us and in us? Exactly. That's the spirit. So we have physical body, and inside you have soul, and inside you have spirit. And during the meditation, when you exclude all your physical senses, your five senses, we exclude them, then we rely either on spiritual senses or we simply go deep. We can go deep and we can touch the soul and we can start getting information from our soul, from our previous experiences. And if we go really deep, then we can even touch the divine, that flash, that light of God. So yes, through different techniques. You mentioned astral projection. That's one of the techniques how you can leave your body, how you can, go through the spiritual aspects, how you can meet different entities and so on. So life is much more complex and I would say much more interesting than what they try to teach us, what they try to present us. Unfortunately, people who have certain gifts, who can see more, who can feel more, who can hear more, who can go in the past or in the future, they are considered freaks and, people laugh at them. And that's very sad. Instead of us teaching from them, people are laughing at them. And that's very sad state of affairs at this time in 21st century. And we completely rely on technology. We waste so much time on the social networks. And I agree, technology should support our life, but we should not be so dependent on it. So we are losing what was the most important to us, our naturality. We are natural beings. We should be out in the nature. We should, breathe together with the plants, should be with the animals. We have forgotten all of that. So the way where our society is going at this point is not very promising.
Our past lives are maybe recorded in what some call the Akashic records?
Well, Akashic record is the idea that in spiritual realm there is a library of all knowledge, of everything that has happened on our planet in the past and in the future, and of everything that has happened in our universe. That's an interesting idea. It's very possible that it does exist. Now you have many people who claim that they can access the Akashic records, and I even wrote a book on the subject, talking to 6 of them, and I was asking them the same questions. I applied scientific protocols, and of course it was not at the same time. They could not hear what I was asking them. They could not get prepared. So when I compare the answers, you would say you're going to get the same answers. It has not happened. But what did happen, it seemed that all their answers were part of the big picture. So one should be careful how to read Akashic records and what to do with information from different Akashic record readers. life is much more complicated than we think it is.
You just now mentioned that we use technology maybe all too much. Why do you think that the powers that be want to transform us in half robotic humans?
Well, this cell phone, this mobile phone in Bosnia works on 3G network. In Europe, the only two countries that have 3G network are Bosnia and Ukraine. It works on 2.4 gigahertz. Most of the countries have both 4G and 5G. It goes all the way to 90 gigahertz. Every time when we talk on the phone, what you have is this device emits gigahertz. These are radio waves. Radio waves, microwaves are based on radio waves. Microwave causes the cancer. Every time we talk on this phone, we burn the brain cells. More we talk, more hundreds of thousands and more millions of brain cells are dying. They got burned. Now, of course, we have billions of cells. Every time you lose millions and millions and millions, you start processing the information slower and slower, and you become dumber and dumber, or less intelligent. So, it seems that somebody purposely are making up this particular frequency to make us dumber and sicker. So they are creating...
So all the things, the thing to talk in the car, the watch, it's all emitting and pulsating to the human body.
I mean, you need to get the signal, and that's this bad electromagnetism. The only place that I know of where there is no signal are the Bosnian pyramid tunnels. No signal for mobile phones and no signal for internet, for Wi-Fi.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yes. So, that's why that place is so protected. You don't have anything bad. No bad cosmic radiations, no bad energy from underground waters. Nothing bad. Our body cells don't have enemies when in Bosnian pyramid tunnels. Without enemies, the body cells can start doing their job, and their job is to fix the problems in the body, to start the regeneration process, to start the self-healing process. And that's the healthiest way to heal yourself. Not through the drugs from pharmaceutical companies, but through the regeneration process.
Okay. What would you say to somebody like Graham Hancock, of whom I've heard says there are no pyramids in Bosnia? What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, Graham Hancock deserves really a lot of praise for his work during 1990s. He was brave enough to claim that there are more ancient civilizations than Egyptian pharaonic civilization or some others. But Graham Hancock is not a scientist. He does not take samples and analyze them. He does not do lab analysis. He does not do radiocarbon dating. He does not do energy measurements. So he's not a scientist. What he does, he goes to different places. He applies common sense. He talks to the scientists at the site. If he got lucky, he can talk to archaeologists and so on. He writes very good books. He's a very intelligent man, but he's not a scientist. Hancock.
And you with the team, with Goran Marjanovic and all the others, have proven very many things. Yes.
So Hancock, David Hatcher, Robert Schoch, Andrew Collins, and many other independent researchers who are very important in the 1990s. But now these are different times, 2010s, 2020s. Now you have people like Valer Uvarov, pyramid builder, Dr. Danny Hillman, geophysicist who discovered Gunung Padang Pyramid in Indonesia, 24,000 years old. You have Professor Konstantin Korotkov, who developed instruments, discovered instruments to measure pyramid energies. You have Michael Tellinger, who does many measurements in Adam's calendar in South Africa. And of course, you have Bosnian Pyramid Project. So we are the new generation who have our own field projects. Graham Hancock does not have his project. He travels from one place to another. Robert Shaw, from one place to another. They try to pick up information and they show, but they have not discovered anything. Mm-hmm. That's a big difference. And they don't like us. Mm-hmm. So Hancock came to Bosnia and spent 2-3 days, and he saw many volunteers, he saw our labs, he listened to the results of energy measurements. He does not have reference to compare. For him, Egyptian pyramids, pharaohs, tombs.
Okay.
For us,
the mainstream.
Pyramids have nothing to do with the mummies and pharaohs or tombs. Pyramids are energy machines, and we have proven that because we have measured them. And one last thing, Hancock is Englishman. An Englishman, they think, they
own the world.
Superior to anybody else.
Okay. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer the next question, but I'm going to try anyway, because I know that you traveled all around the world. I read your books and I've seen all the pyramids and all the places that you visited in your books. So maybe you know something about this. This is connected to the same individual I was mentioning before, Santos Bonacci. He is currently, I'm following him on Facebook, he's currently in Mexico, Mesoamerica, researching this theory that the architecture in the cities there, like Mexico City, is very much older than what they say, and that it predates the colonization of the Americas, and that is in fact the big buildings, the big cathedrals are buildings of the so-called country of Great Tartaria. Have you heard about this theory at all, Dr. Osmanagich?
Well, I heard about that. Now, Great Tartaria, which was supposedly extending all the way from Asia to most parts of Europe. Now, this is the first time I hear that it went all the way to Mexico. When it comes to all these big cathedral-like buildings, of course, we had them throughout Italy, let's say Bologna and some other places. And really, you can see on some drawings from the 15th century, those huge towers. And you ask yourself, where this architecture, where did it come from, and so on. But talking about Mexico, what we call today DF in Mexico, that's District Federales or DF or the capital city of Mexico City, it was built on ruins of Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan is the place where Aztecs built their capital city. Aztecs were people who came from the northern parts of Mexico. They established their country there, their state. They were very powerful. Of course, Hernán Cortés came in the 16th century, 1520s, 1530s. He conquered the big Aztecs empire. Before that, you had Mayans. Mayans were throughout Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Salvador, Belize. They were building the pyramids and temples, and they built more than 100,000 pyramids. Well more than 100,000, maybe several hundreds of thousands, but 97% are still hidden in the jungles. That was different architecture. So the pyramids, the temples, and pyramidal terraces. It was different architecture than what you are implying in your question. So
yeah. The theory is that the insignia that you see on the churches there, the Catholic insignia, were added and sculpted later, but all the beautiful ornamental cathedrals are part, say, of this old civilization that you've seen there.
During the Middle Age, especially earlier phases, we know that so much dark pages, we almost know nothing. We know just about a few rulers, what was happening. That's the reason why they call it Dark Ages, because you know almost nothing. It was just 1,500 years back. We think that we know everything about ancient Rome, ancient Greece. We know less than 1%, based on rare documents and mostly about their architecture. So we know nothing about how they live their lives. And even when you go back, ancient Egypt, we can only guess. And this guess is usually wrong when they show Cleopatra and pyramids in the back. I mean, this woman was ruling from Alexandria. There are no pyramids there. When they show all these, pharaohs and hundreds of thousands of slaves building the pyramid, I mean, these are bedtime stories. They have nothing with the reality. What hundreds of thousands of slaves when the whole of Egypt, just 3,300 years back, and Cheops was from 4,500, just 3,300 years back, the whole of Egypt had less than 100,000 people. And they're talking about hundreds of thousands of slaves. When the whole Egyptian army went to fight Hittite army during the 19th dynasty, Ramesses II, they could gather only 20,000 soldiers. If they had all those slaves, they would have 100,000 soldiers. So these are the bedtime stories, and the Englishmen are the masters because they've been programmed us to think that such a huge civilization with the slaves and the rich pharaohs, they built pyramids. The pharaohs had no clue about the pyramids, about the Sphinx. So these are the biggest hoaxes in human history. Those pyramids were built much earlier. The most important document from Egypt, Turin King List, we learned about the 3 different phases of Egyptian history. Pharaonic, last 5,000 years. Before that, demi-gods or semi-gods, half-gods. They would rule 200, 300, 400 years each. And before that, gods, with a small g, gods, they would rule 1,000 years each. And those gods who came 42,500 years back in Egypt from the kingdom of heaven to kingdom of earth, they started ruling and building those structures. But right now, they taught us to believe something else.
Okay.
And people are uninformed enough.
About that kingdom of heaven, do we believe that they travel by portals? Or maybe somebody asked me why these portals are so heavily guarded today. Is that possible? Or
when you see different traditions in India, in Egypt, in Sumeria, and so on, they are talking basically about the flashes of light and some type of the machines. Of course, they are talking about coaches without the horses. So it is pretty close to how we would describe the spaceship now. But the question about the portals, well, then you can apply that question how those spaceships or those space vehicles were moving. If they are going with the speed of light, they would never come here from, hundreds of light years away solar systems, not to mention galaxies, which are tens of thousands of years, not to mention the center of our universe, which is 5 billion light years away. They had to have more practical way of movement. Whether they were somehow moving the space or using the portals like the one in SG1, we can just guess at this point, but I think we have to be creative and think out of the box.
This brings me to the next question. I have heard you talking about the hollow earth theory in several occasions, and that maybe some of this civilization also come from the inside. But I have also heard, and it's very popular nowadays in this community of alternative thinking, this flat earth theory. I have heard a lot about it. So maybe what if this is true, that they say that the heavens is like in the Bible, that they describe it, that it is waters above and the waters below, so that we cannot travel with spaceships. This is why I mentioned portals. Maybe. What can you tell us about all of this?
Well, really, anything is possible at this point. But personally, when people ask me who built Bosnian pyramids, I said, listen, I'm a scientist, open-minded, but still a scientist. I need scientific arguments before I claim who built it. I can say something about when and the results of our radiocarbon analysis. I can say something about the concrete on Bosnian pyramids. I can say something, about the, orientation and stuff. But who, we don't have really good scientific arguments on who built it. So I say, listen, I'm open. It can be Homo sapiens, 30-something thousand years ago. It can be someone from out of this planet. We don't know. It can be someone from spiritual world, some entities who had possibility to affect the material life. And I said it can be someone from inside this planet, if this planet is hollow. Yes, there is a theory that not only our planet, but all other planets are hollow. And if our planet is hollow, all other has to be hollow to get all these values when it comes to the movement around our sun. Is it hollow? I don't know. I haven't been there. Is it possible? Of course it is possible. What do we know, from 500 meters below to, there was only one, try by Russians to go several kilometers, and, the conditions were so different, pressure and temperature. So we really don't know. But is it possible that there are some cavities going down deeper in the inner Earth? It is possible at this point.
And the other one, the flat Earth one?
Huh?
The flat Earth one, the other theory?
Yes, I was coming to that. As far as the flat Earth, I've heard some very interesting questions, and some very interesting claims that, what they see from, let's say, French coast in England, it's impossible, or vice versa, or when you are, on the ship and you can see stuff hundreds of kilometers away. There is a calculation where you can calculate if the planet is about 40,000 kilometers, circumference, 40,000 kilometers, we have 360 degrees. You can calculate 1 degree less, how many kilometers you got there, and then 2 degrees and 5 degrees and so on. You can calculate that, and I haven't really tested that, so I couldn't say. There are some interesting, questions. People are saying, that the planes, they turn off their, this GPR or GPSs when they fly. I don't know if that's true or not. Then they are saying they don't fly the shortest route if the planet was sphere. For example, if they go from Australia to South Africa, they fly to Dubai, or they fly to Kenya or some other countries. But then I went on internet and really I was checking, are there some direct flights from Australia, let's say Perth, to Johannesburg? According to the flat Earth theorists, there were not direct flights, but I did find some direct flights. So then you can see that it takes time to, I wouldn't say debunk, but I would say to answer those questions. Some questions are, rather theoretical. The physicists should answer those. But if you ask me, my humble opinion is that our Earth, what I say usually, our Earth, I don't see it as flat or rounded, I see it as the shape of heart. Because the heart or the love should be the binding element on this planet.
That's nice, yes. The
but
green chakra.
Most probably it is rather spherical, or, like a cone with the different energy fields. And so it would take more investigation. Is it possible that people went to the atmosphere, that the satellites are there? I think the satellites are there. Because people are saying it's a big conspiracy, the NASA does not want you to know the truth. Yes, if it was only for NASA. But right now, you have more than 30 countries who have their, satellites over there. Now, United Arab Emirates, actually Dubai, they claim they sent this rover to the Mars, or at least they have actually the satellite in their atmosphere. So 30 countries, among them you have Korea, you have Pakistan, you have Iran, you have some South American countries. NASA cannot control all of them. And you have 100,000 people. And it would be impossible that 1,000 of them who are connecting to all those flights and satellites and rockets, that they don't talk, that they don't write books. So I would say it could be conspiracy back in 1960s when you have only two countries, US and Soviet Union, doing this exploration. Now it's different. Most probably, it's true that even landing on the moon was filmed in the Nevada desert, but did they go and did they land it? I think most probably yes.
Yeah.
Even though the film that we watched was, fake thing.
Directed by Stanley Kubrick, if I'm not
Well, that's
mistaken.
what he admitted before he passed away. And
Yeah.
I would say most probably he was giving a truthful statement.
Well, I would say if they can do it with Corona, they can do it with the flat Earth, maybe.
And then you ask yourself, why is that theory, outside? Maybe there was a plan to do that, to make us all confused about the world where we live. In 1981, the former FBI director, FBI, I mean, that's one of the 3, 4 most powerful men in US and in the world for that matter. He said, listen, what we've been doing for the last few decades, we've been lying to the public so much, to the media that we control. Once the people, are programmed that way, once they trust that everything we say on media, then you can control and manipulate in any way you want.
Mm-hmm. Okay. About the Bosnian pyramids, do you ever get censored for things that you are saying? Or on social media or on any other platform?
Do I get censored?
Yes.
Well, what I've noticed is that, for example, my YouTube channel, I got like 46,000 subscribers, but somehow they have those algorithms that they don't allow people to share my videos. People, they're saying, okay, we try not to share it on our Facebook, but we are not allowed to. So I would say, yes, we can see some fingers of those, fact-checking companies.
Mm-hmm.
That they've been watching us.
And
they make sure that our message does not spread
shadow
all over
censoring
the place.
you. Yeah. That your message doesn't spread and they are shadow censoring your YouTube channel. That is very, very sad. Well, I have just one last question from a friend of mine that wanted me to ask you. Were we attacked before by beings on the other side of the portals?
I don't know.
We don't know. Yeah.
But I think that our planet most probably has been visited many times, and that we can even see that in our genetical code.
Okay. The importance of fasting and maybe parasites in our body, and so we can conclude with this, with the health, something about our health.
We need to take care of our health. We need to take care of our immunity. When it comes to immunity, that's the best protection from anything, from viruses, from bacteria, from fungi, from parasites. What affects our immunity? What we eat, what we drink, where we go, where we walk, where we live, what we think. So once those 5, 6 factors are at least in line and we do best what we can, we are in the nature, we don't think bad about other people, we are not exposed to stress because we know how to alleviate the stress. Once we drink, only the untreated clean water, once we try to eat as much organic food as possible, and so on. So once we think positive about other people, once we are, our frequencies are high, then it's going to help us with everything, including, corona, including those new, soil viruses. And in the future, unfortunately, we're going to be seeing more and more. So the idea is for them to force us to receive vaccines every year and so on. So I would say immunity is the key for every one of us in the future. So I mentioned the food, you mentioned the fasting. Well, yes, I mean, now with all the riches that we got so much choice when it comes to the food. And unfortunately, they made us eat what's worse for us, industrial sugars, and so on. So we need to be smart. We need to, when we choose what we eat, what we drink, and so on.
Outsmart the elite. Outsmart the elite, yes.
Yes, yes, yeah. You need to make the system works for you, not you working for the system. So fasting is a part of the story, and it's important part. One day a week, it helps, the body to clean, to purify, or a month, or. And there are different methods, and I think they're all okay. We need to find something that's good for our body, where we're gonna feel good. Some people, people always trying to make category. Now they are saying, okay, we have this blood group, like group, that, meat is good for them. This one requires that. Yes and no. Every individual is different. For example, I don't eat meat for whatever 6 years, and I feel good. I don't need it. Especially when you think about meat, who makes it, where, how they treat those animals, blah, blah. So every one of us has to find his or her own way.
Yeah. And so, come to the Bosnian pyramids, the Visoko, Bosnia, Central Bosnia, Pyramid of the Sun in Visoko. Meet Dr. Semir Osmanagic. Once again, 2 festivals, one for the summer solstice and one for the equinox. And so hereby I thank you for this long and very, very interesting interview. From all of our collaborators here at Crofreemedia, at this independent channel, I thank you with all my heart and with all the love of my friends here on the other side of the camera. And I hope to see you soon in Visoko.
Great, you are welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you all of the viewers. Goodbye and have a nice day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.